This is the Claim Your Day podcast. I'm your host, Nick Maisie. If you're tired of drifting and you're ready to start living intentionally according to your values, you're in the right place, my friend. We're here to help you lead with excellence at home, at work, and in your community so you can live with significance. Let's bridge the gap between who you are today and who you are called to be. Now is the time for you to claim your day.
Like, you would never dream of ghosting a client, like just not showing up because you didn't feel like it. You would never show up 20 minutes late to a meeting with your boss because you weren't in the mood. No, you're a professional. But when it comes to the promises you make yourself, well, do you ghost yourself sometimes? See, every time you break a promise to yourself, you lose trust in your own leadership. You're not showing integrity to the word that you give yourself. You stop believing that your word actually matters. Well, today we're going to apply the professional standard to your personal life. It's time to sign a contract with the person in the mirror. Well, welcome, my friend, to episode 87 of Claim Your Day podcast, and that's what we're going to get into today. As always, I'm glad that you're here, you're joining in. You know, it is time to claim your day, to make the most of the day that you have, to live with intention so that you can lead your life to go in the direction that you want it to go according to your values, to stop drifting and to start being intentional with your life. And it all starts today, my friend. So today, as always, I've got just a few key points to really bring in this, bringing integrity to our lives with our words that we give ourselves. And it's building that internal integrity and how impactful that can be. Because it's easy to think about when we give our word, giving it to other people, and how important it is to be a person of our word, or our words matter. But the words that you give yourself, those are every bit as important as the words that you give other people. So how are you going to do this? Well, the first point that I have, it all goes to the law of the mirror. And this is a John Maxwell concept. And he talks about the law of the mirror. And it's basically the person that you see in the mirror. Now, you can't consistently perform in a way that is inconsistent from how you see yourself. Think about this. If you see yourself in one sort of way, in one manner, well, then you're not going to be able to act in a different way, for a long period of time. So if you see yourself as someone who quits when it's hard, it's going to be difficult for you to stay in there and to keep going, to persist and to be consistent with your actions, moving toward a goal when it gets challenging. So what are you going to do about this? Well, you're going to start by building that self-trust. See, integrity, it's kind of like a bank account. You have to feed into it if you want it to back you up. If you want to get value out of that integrity that you've built, you got to feed into it with your regular daily small actions. And every time you keep a promise, you make a little bit of a deposit in there. So keeping the words and the promises that you make yourself makes small deposits in your own internal integrity. And that's where it can be an asset. It can help keep you going forward on the right track by making those small, little, regular, daily deposits. Not always the massive ones. It's those small deposits built up over time that are going to help you to develop that internal integrity that's going to keep you going. It's going to keep you sticking to your word that you give yourself when it's tough. So that's the first point. It's that person we see in the mirror, the law of the mirror. We're going to act consistent. We're going to act in a way that aligns with how we see ourselves. So if you want to change how you're acting, and make these small adjustments, and they'll impact how you see yourself so that you can guide your life to go where you want it to go and live how you want to live. So the law of the mirror, that's the first one. The second one is this professional standard. Like I said at the very beginning, let's look at applying the professional standard that we uphold at work and at the office, at the job site, just because it's obvious. Of course we're going to have that standard because it's our job. Well, we need to apply that same standard and that same rigor of that standard to our home life at home. Why do we always give, our best to the people who pay us, and the people we work with, and the scraps to those people that love us at our home? See, discipline, is treating your family values with the same effective prioritization as you would in a board meeting. Think about this. You're having that same level of discipline with the values that you have at home as the discipline that you would have at work. This can be tough. I think, a culture sometimes prioritizes all the value from work, a job, and things like that, which there's value in there. I'm not trying to shortchange that. But at the end of the day, or at the end of your life, are you going to look back and wish that you had just worked more? Or are you going to wish that you had spent more quality time with loved ones, with friends, and with family? See, I'd venture to say that those are really the big things in life. We work to live, and hopefully we don't live just to work. And so I'm not trying to say a bunch of negative stuff or dump all over work. There's a lot of value in providing good work and providing value and impacting lives by the vocation that you have. 100%. We have to make sure, though, that we're having the same standard, the professional standard, and that level of discipline at home and not just with our work. So that's the second point, is really maintaining that professional standard and that level of discipline at home too. That's where the real high stakes are, in my opinion. And then the third point, it's all about, integrity of moving. It's thinking of the who over the what. See, the climb. I did a whole series on the worthwhile climb, and a lot of it's based on, John Maxwell saying, everything worthwhile is uphill all the way, which means that we're going to climb. So think about this. The climb, to achieve your goals, to live the life you want to have, to guide your life, to have those accomplishments, to have that impact, that journey, the climb is worthwhile because of the man or the woman you become by refusing to quit. The climb is worthwhile because who you become by refusing to quit. Think about that. The journey that you go through when you're overcoming the challenges, when you persist, when you don't quit, when things come your way and you stay determined, acting with diligence, that helps shape you into that person that you're becoming. It's developing and building the reputation you have with yourself. The journey can actually be greater than the destination because of who you become along the way. Now, let me go ahead and just be a little transparent with that last statement. That is tough for me sometimes because I think about the goals, the accomplishments, the achievements. I have something that I'm working toward. And sometimes it's hard for me to really buy into the journey can be greater than the destination. Okay, a little bit of transparency. But at the same time, I get it. Think about it. If you're working hard let's say you're working hard to build a company, and you're working hard, you have this goal, you want to grow this company, it's meaningful to you. And so what do? You figure out what you need to do. You make the right connections. You develop the product. You build a marketing team. You lead. You lead well. You find out what you need to change about yourself, and then you change that. You find out what you need to do to improve your communication, your leadership, your networking. Maybe you find out the technical skills that you need. You go through the process of hiring and bringing on the right people. All those things. What you're doing is you have a goal and you're figuring out what you need to do within yourself and outside of yourself in order to accomplish it. You have that challenge and you're adjusting what you need to do in order to achieve that. That's where I would say the journey is greater than just the destination, because all those things that you learn and all those ways that you improve yourself, you can then apply to a different goal later on. It's not that your goals aren't important.
It's not that the journey is all that counts. It's the fact that you're able to overcome those challenges, stick with it, and make it a reality. That's because the climb, the journey, it's worthwhile not just because of the goal of achieving the goal, but it's because the person you become by refusing to quit as you go achieve that goal. Make sure you're becoming the person that you want to be while you're working to achieve your goals, not just the achievement of the goals. So those are the 3 main points for this episode. It's all about, who you see yourself as, that person in the mirror. Making sure that you're seeing yourself as the person that you want to be. Apply the same professional standard that you would at work, at home, with the same level of discipline. And have the integrity to honor the person that you're becoming as you work to achieve your goals. Those are the 3 main points. So how are you going to do this? Here's the how. First, a simple way to do this, or a simple way that you can start with this, is kind of audit your promises. What have you told yourself you would do someday, but you might be pushing it off because it's not the perfect timing? What's one thing that you told yourself you would do and you're putting it off? What's that one thing? Go ahead and think about it right now. Write it down if you can. If you're driving right now, don't write it down. But think about that one thing that you've told yourself that you would do. Now, when you have a moment, and if you're driving, you can't write down right now, you can write it down later, or you can just say this out loud with yourself. I want you to write a 7-day contract. Pick that one small, non-negotiable action that you will take. And I didn't say that you'd be comfortable taking. I didn't say that you would feel like taking. But no excuses, no feelings, just the integrity of the person in the mirror. That person who's going to keep their word to their self. Honor that integrity. Build that integrity by picking one small, non-negotiable action that you're going to write that contract, that you're going to complete and accomplish, and you're going to do that thing within the next 7 days. No questions asked. No excuses, no feelings. You're going to do it. Because this is the word that you're going to keep to yourself. This is your integrity is on the line. Make it that big a deal, and you'll do it. And before you know it, after one, you can do another one. And you'll build that integrity that you have with yourself. And that's going to help you to follow through on the goals that you set. That's going to help you to keep going on that worthwhile climb. And that's going to help you to become that person that achieves their goals, that lives their life according to their values. And it starts with keeping the word that you give yourself. That's what I want you to do this week. Like you are the most important leader that you will ever follow. It's like the most important words you'll hear are the words you tell yourself. Be a person of your word. And claim your day, my friend. All right. That's it for today's episode. As always, I want to encourage you to go to nickmazy.com for more resources and information. You can listen to podcast episodes there. I have recently started putting more just short videos on YouTube. You can search for Nick Mazy. You can find me there. And I'm putting together, like I said, a community of, calling it life leaders. I want to make a community that is here to help you go from drifting to significance by living out your values, by leading yourself, where we can encourage each other. Obviously, I'll be sharing, material and content. It's going to be heavily based on John Maxwell. You already know that because I mention that all the time in these episodes. So if you want a little bit more information, you can go to nickmazy.com/drifting. That's going to help you to stop drifting and go from drifting to significance. All right, here's to you, my friend. Lead well and claim your day.